Hi guys, welcome back to the second episode of Bridging the Gap. And so let's cover a bit of housekeeping first. I just want to give you guys a quicker roadmap of where this series is going. And so I've kind of divided the content of these lectures into two overarching arcs, which is roughly divided into tactics and strategy. And so if you're familiar with chess or war theory for whatever reason, you'll know that tactics and strategy are two components of achieving your end result. And so tactics refers to the smaller local scale engagements, and that's what we're going to be talking about in the next few videos. And then afterwards, once we're more comfortable with not dying everywhere, we'll then talk about a bit of the strategy and your objectives, looking at the different stages of the game, and then hopefully with a better grasp on tactics, you'll be able to better execute your strategies. So today we're going to be looking at the basics of reading. Reading, or being able to visualize possible moves on the board, is the most important skill in the game. Not only to ensure that you just don't flat out die everywhere, but also because to effectively carry out your game plan, you need to be able to read out and see the possible variations, and then choose the ones which are the best for you. To again compare it to chess, if you knew a move was going to lead to a checkmate in a few moves, you just simply don't play it. And the same applies in Go. If you want to play a move, but you read out that it's going to result in a disadvantageous position for you, you should forego it and try to find another better move. So to start out, we're going to look at the most basic of reading exercises. This is called the ladder. You may or may not have heard of it. And so the ladder is a cool little thing. I'll just show you by example. So starting here on the bottom left, this is a typical setup, the most simple setup for a ladder. And so if black plays first, black can Atari this white stone. You see that 3 of the 4 liberties are taken away, and so white has to extend, right? So if white plays somewhere else, black will take the stone. And so white extends, and then white has 2 liberties here, 1 and 2. The thing is, black can Atari again, and then white has to extend again, and then black can Atari again. And so you get this kind of cool zigzag pattern that just goes down to the end of the board, and white is left with nothing at the end. So this pattern maybe more resembles a staircase, but we call it a ladder, and it's a very, very prominent position that you'll see everywhere. But I'll talk about that a little bit more later. And so because it's relatively simple, it makes a really good exercise to practice visualizing the stones, right? So unlike some other more complex problems, there aren't multiple places where you might have to read out multiple variations. This is very simple. That black will play here. You know that white will extend. You know that black will play here. You know that white will extend. And like doing scales for an instrument, using this black, white, black, white, black, white, black, you can practice imaging these stones that have not been played yet. And so I purposely place this one close to the edge of the board so that we wouldn't have to go that far. But let's try one a little bit further. Try it first, just pause the video real quick and give it a try, and try to see and read out the sequence for this this group here that's a little further up. Black playing first, if black Ataris, and white extends, and try to follow that all the way down to the edge of the board. Okay, and so let's give this a shot. Black Ataris, white extends, black, white, and then we just keep going. And you see that white is trapped on the edge and black can take. Cool. So this seems really powerful, and it is indeed an extremely powerful tactic. But there is one little flaw, and that's that you can play what's called a ladder breaker. And so if we look at this last example of ladder up top, you see that there's a stray white stone here on the right side. And actually what this will do, if you give this a try to read it out on your own, follow white, black, white, black, white, black, right? And you'll see that the white stone actually will run into this stone. And in doing so, it breaks that one liberty shortage kind of sequence that goes on. And so if we follow this one, you can follow it all the way down, and it keeps going, and it looks almost the same as before until white runs into here. And then white can connect, and white no longer has just one liberty, which means that white can Atari somewhere else, or excuse me, white can Atari somewhere else. White can jump out, run away, do all sorts of things. And because black is left with so many defects, you can see that each one of these spots results in a double Atari for white. This means that, here, let me show you, a double Atari for white. You know, black is left with a lot of defects, and his stones aren't really being that efficient. We talked about that before. His stones aren't doing a very good job. And so a broken ladder is most definitely something you want to avoid. As a quick side note, if you want to see something really cool, look up the Lee Sedol broken ladder game. This was a game back in the 2000s, the mid 2000s, where top pro Lee Sedol played a game where he purposefully let a broken ladder go and then somehow won by making some gigantic Sibicky. So that's a little fun thing you might search up if you have spare time. But for the rest of us, broken ladder is something to avoid. And so learn to see it. You know, practice again. Look at this position. See that you can do a ladder, but then practice following the ladder sequence all the way down, and practice seeing that it runs into the white stone and that you won't be able to capture it as black. Okay, so that's the ladder. Next, we'll move into the net, and the net is the second of the two really kind of super common tactics that you can use. And so the net, or it's sometimes called the geta from the Japanese term, is this move. So if you look on the upper left, black plays here. And with this, white is captured. You can see that even if white tries to escape, black just covers him and keeps him in. And then white has no way out. So because of this, we say that white is netted in by this one black stone. White has been trapped in black's net, so to say. This doesn't apply for just one stone. If you see in this next example, white has two stones surrounded by black, and black can even net this group. So if black plays a similar type of move, right, you can try whatever you want, but as long as black plays solidly, white will not be able to get out. So white can't go this way. White has one liberty. White can't push any other way. And white's gone. White can try something fancy, like maybe cut here, but then white just does not have enough liberties. Black can just cover another liberty, and there's nothing for white. So yeah, it doesn't have to be just one stone. It can be two stones. And again, this is a really common sequence that, you know, these are kind of contrived examples. You'd be hard pressed to find something exactly like this in game. But let's look at this, right? Maybe white and black had some exchanges here, and then you're in this position and it's black to play. Well, black can net and kill all of these stones. And so this is something that's good to look for in games. And if you're playing black, you need to know you can kill it. However, if you were playing white in this situation, let's say it's white's turn, then you need to know that, oh no, white or black can kill me in one move, and then I need to get out. So that's, again, the importance of reading and making sure you're not dead everywhere, because if you do, then your strategies don't matter, right? If all your local engagements fail, then there's no meaning to your grand overarching game plan. So those are the classic nets. Next, let's look at this example on the bottom left. First of all, you might be tempted to ladder this, and you're right, a ladder would work. So if black plays here, you can see it's that pattern again. But I want to use this to illustrate a different example, and that's what we sometimes call the loose net. And so if in this situation, black plays here, white will never make more than two liberties. First of all, just like the other examples, white can't push up this way because black just covers it. But also, if white comes out this way, this is the bigger question, right? What does black do? Well, black can do this, and then white can't play away because black will cut. and there's only one liberty left. So white has to play down, and black can just drive white right into the wall, and white only has one liberty left, can't go out this way, and white is dead. So this is a little less common than the classic net, but it is something that pops up fairly often as an option, and so you should be aware that it exists and is something that you and your opponent can use. Lastly, just like broken ladders, we're going to talk about how nets don't always work. And so in this case, this last case on the bottom right, if you take a look, having seen these previous examples, you might think, oh, black can just play here, and white is captured, right? Turns out no. You can really crudely, or white can, excuse me, really crudely break his way out. And so white will push and push, and white can do things like Atari and break out. Usually this will be regarded as not very good for black, and you can see why. Black is split up in many different groups. White stones aren't dead. White stones on the outside aren't dead, even though they can be netted, so that's one thing. But even then, there's too many defects. These two stones only have 2 liberties, and so this is tough, and it's going to be a rough time for black. However, if you can see this pattern, maybe in some situation you might take a look all the way back here and decide, even if I play this, the end results, the possible variations that I am reading, that I'm seeing ahead, work for me and they're advantageous to me, then you might go ahead and play them. So this is, again, the importance of tactics and reading and being able to resolve local situations before you can think about some grand strategy. By reading ahead and making sure that there is a situation that doesn't result in something totally terrible for you, you can then evaluate whether that position is good or bad for you, whether it fits into your game plan or not, and evaluate accordingly. Okay, and so as a final thing for today, I have 4 problems for you, where in each of the problems it's black to play first, and black can capture a white stone or some white stones using these concepts of a ladder or a net. And so I encourage you to pause the video real quick and give these each a shot and try to find the correct answer on how black can capture white stones. And then afterwards, I'll just come back and show the answer. So I'll give you a second right now. Okay, so for problem A in the upper left, black can play here. And so this is a ladder. You can see that white goes out, black blocks, white comes down, black blocks, and the pattern continues until white is driven into the wall with only single liberty, and then white is captured. There's actually a couple of solutions to this problem. You can actually also do a kind of a combination loose net ladder thing here. And so white can't come out anyway. White just doesn't have enough liberties. Also, white, because it's a net, can't push out this way, 1 liberty, and then white can just be driven into the ground and be captured. So that's another possibility, this net right here. And then actually, even depending on the scenario of how other stones might surround, black can even play this way, and white really has no way to get out, and these stones would be captured. And so if you recognize that in game, let's say that all of these moves, these 3 moves, all capture white stone, and it's then up to you to decide, which one leaves me in a better position. And that's something which I think is really the hardest part of Go, because anyone can learn to read these variations. It's a more difficult thing to have the awareness and the skill to say this one's better than the other for X, Y, Z reasons. So the correct answer, the one that I kind of wanted people to get, was this one. But if you found the other 2, congrats, you are doing really well. Okay, moving on now to problem B. So you can see actually I had to change all these because even my reading isn't that great sometimes, and I miss that they didn't work as intended. But they do here. So problem B, black to play, black can simply play here and net the 2 white stones, and the white stones have nowhere to go. No matter what they do, white is captured. So that's simple enough. Not much to say. It's just pretty much the same example that I showed earlier, except there's a few more stones thrown around to try to confuse you. Okay, problem C. Problem C, our first instinct might be to ladder this white stone. However, this doesn't work. And if you thought it did, take another closer look and read out why, right? So white comes out, black blocks, white, black, and white connects. And suddenly white is out, white is fine here, and black is in a pretty bad spot because there's a lot of weaknesses. And so again, broken ladders are something that should be avoided, and we can't play that variation, especially when there's a perfectly good working move right next to it, right here. And so this is netted, and white can't come out this way, and white can't come out this way, and after this, white is captured. And so this move captures white. Okay. Lastly, problem D. This was kind of the challenge problem. So there is a net, but you have to force white to make a move first, right? So black can push here, and this is the key move. Now, if white does anything else, black will capture the stone, and white's in a pretty bad spot. And so white has to connect. And now, this might look a lot more familiar. Black can play the net here, and the central white stone is captured. Again, I put this here so that the ladder doesn't work. So the net is the only option here. But the real key was to find this forcing move first, that Atari. So yeah, if you found that, really good job. As a super bonus reading exercise for the day, here are the unedited problems. So C and B, the upper right and lower left, didn't work before. I made the edit, and see if you can see why. Look at the variations and nets and the ladders and see why it doesn't work and why white can break out. So that's all the content for the actual stuff. So I just want to talk a little bit at the end about why these are important. So it turns out that nets and ladders come up all the time, and you might not see them played out, but people read that there is a possibility if I play, here, that black can ladder me or that white can ladder me, and if that ladder doesn't work, you have to not play that variation. And so oftentimes, I think one of the places where this is most apparent is when you play opening joseki. So joseki are opening sequences that you play in the corner at the beginning of game, and sometimes they result in ladders. And if you see that the ladder does not work for you, that either the opposing player breaks out or that you get captured by a ladder, then you can't play that variation of that joseki. And sometimes entire games are lost because a player misreads a ladder and they play out a couple moves and they realize that they've completely ruined their position because they've misread something simple. And I've had this happen well beyond the double digit Q realm. So don't make light of ladders and nets. These are the easiest things to practice, and they're really good at also developing your general reading skills. So there's really no reason that you shouldn't take a little bit of time and practice these. So that's all for today. We covered ladders and nets. Take a look at these problems again, and next time we'll be covering some more fun stuff about tactical reading and fighting and all that good stuff. So that's all for this video, and Stonefly out.